Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at Honeymoon.com's transformation guide for the Evolution Toy 160 scale VF-2SS. As seen here, I'll be using the Fairy Squad version, but these transformation steps would work for any of the variants. All should pretty much be sold out now, so shopping for them means you're looking on the secondary market. For any of your new toys, I recommend Big Bad Toy Store. Check out the link in the comments below to shop till you drop and help this channel out in the process. Now in fighter mode, this little fin should be down. It's going to pop back in as we handle the toy. If you got your landing gear out, you're going to tuck them in. These arms should be in these slots on the legs, but it doesn't always work out that way. But we're going to start by just going ahead and pressing those tabs in. Then you're going to press forward on the leg, and it should free up from that peg there. So now we can do that again on the other side and just bring your legs forward. And now what we want to do is flip the toy over. There's this hinge in the middle of the backpack. We're just going to bring up the backpack on that hinge and flip it over. This piece might be up, probably should be. You're going to bring that down at this point. We could bring this up and we could bring these down. But what I'm going to recommend you do first is these nacelles should all be all the way back. These vertical stabilizers probably have untabbed on you. You're going to go ahead and rotate these in. You might have to fish it around that back piece a little bit. And you want your stabilizers to kind of dangle down behind, like so. And then we can go ahead and press this piece down. Now turning our attention to the back of the toy, we have these little pegs here. You want to go ahead and spin those out so that they are facing towards the back for the moment at least. And then we're going to take our shoulders. We are going to bring them out. Now if you have a Fairy or Next version, there's this little hook that's kind of locking the shoulder in place. If you have a Sylvie version, shouldn't be a problem. Should just swing out pretty readily on you. A Fairy or Next version also has this peg here, which went into this slot on the intake. We can go ahead and rotate that inward now, because obviously we don't need that in GERWALK mode. And then we're going to take this slot here and put it on that peg, which previously had the intake connected. So we'll bring that up and we'll repeat on the other side. Now we're going to get the legs into GERWALK position, and that's pretty traditional. You just bring the intake down and you slide out the leg at the knee joint. At the foot, you're going to go ahead and rock back as far as you can. You could bring it out and then open the toe up. And again, we're going to do the same thing with the other leg on the other side. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and get these intakes in position. And to do that, we're first going to pull this tab up on either side. That creates the peg the intakes will attach to. Now, while we're looking below, if you have a big gap going across the top, these pegs on either side are what mate the bottom of the chest to the back. And so you have this peg up top, you have these pegs here, and then these are the pegs underneath that should be syncing everything up and keeping it nice and tight. So if things aren't flush for you, check those pegs, make sure they're not stuck on the housing. Speaking of pegs, if you have a Nex or Sylvie version, we rotated these pieces out of the way earlier. Make sure they're not flush like this. You want them either vertical or, if anything, facing out just a little bit, because as we bring this intake back, it's going to need to rest right up against that hinge, and you don't want the peg interfering. So let's go ahead and do that now. We've got the tab slot. We're just going to bring this in, line it up, and it should snap rather authoritatively into place, like so. As we bring the second leg over, we also have this big tab in the metal swing bar. So you're going to have to line that up and make sure that that's going in before you sink that in. And again, if Nex and Sylvie version, make sure that that peg is not in the way. Get those lined up in the front and then apply pressure, snap everything into place. Now the instructions tell you next to go to the back here and get these pieces down behind this, and you could rotate these over and lock everything into place. So that would be your intakes locked into position. What I would suggest you do is don't do that last step. Leave these pieces out, rotate these things back, and leave these pieces above or not stuck underneath that, because that gives you the ability to pivot the legs outward a little bit further. Your toy should look something like this now, and what we're going to do next is bring the hands out. So all you have to do is bring the arm forward, pop open the forearm, swing the fist out, close the hand back up, and push that peg back down, and repeat with the other arm. All right, you're pretty much in GERWALK mode now. Watch these little pieces here. They have a tendency to drop out of that peg you've attached them to. This is when you're going to then get a little bit of a sweep upward on your wings as well. And the toy should look like this. You're almost certainly gonna have to fish your fin out from either way back up in or up forward and just get that thing drooping down like so. And then from the back, again, I've got these pieces freed up so that I can get more angle outward. You could have them really tightly tucked up. Up to you. It'll look a little bit more uptight, I guess we'll say. But there you go. Now you're in GERWALK mode, and we're ready to play with it before we go on to Battroid. You've had your fun in GERWALK mode, and you're ready to move on to Battroid mode. You're gonna begin with that step I told you should do anyways, which is bringing these intake pieces, these back of the intake pieces. If you've got them up here, you want to go ahead and move them down below, because we're going to free up that entire leg. So let's try to get that. Man, that gets in there pretty tight. So now that you've got them freed from the back, come towards the front and you're going to unpeg them. And while we're in the front, I've already done it accidentally with my hand. Peg's on there pretty good on that side. If you've got your little fin out, go ahead and push that all the way in. Now I've got my legs free. I'm going to take my legs and I'm going to get them into a Battroid position. So straighten out the GERWALK joint, press in there, bring the leg forward and in, and you want it to be out like that, and we'll fine tune it when we get there. And again, let's get that tab settled in. So now that we've got that leg straight, we'll go ahead and do the same thing with the other leg on the other side. Your toy should look like this now. If you have an arm that's popped out like I do, go ahead and set that back in, and you're gonna bring your arms just flat. Don't worry too much about them right now. What we want to do next is bring this whole chest plate forward. And you can pretty much do that by, you've got this little hook here, which chances are it's already exposed, so it's not interfering with anyone. And you're just going to slide that forward and then keep sliding forward. It'll come down, it'll cover the cockpit entirely, and you'll get a nice wide gap in the center like so. And then we're going to take our head, and our head pegs in on either side. There's a little neck plate, and we're just going to pull on that, and that should pop it free. And then we could slide the head forward on that hinge, and then we can just tuck this around and out. We have these little hooks here. We're going to bring these guys forward. They're ultimately going to swing down and peg in on either side of the swing bar here. And you can see we have slots here, which will receive the little pegs on the shoulder as we swing everything through. So the next step we're going to have to worry about is attaching that metal bar, which we'll push together, to this clip mechanism. Now, to make that easier for us to see, I'm going to go ahead and rotate out the nacelles here, like so. And we'd have to do this for the backpack later anyways, but that should give us a little bit more visibility on what I'm going to be struggling with. So we get the clip, the plastic clip, in between those two metal pegs there. And then we bring, again, that head should be out and forward. We bring this back, and you could see there's little grooves on either side where that's going to need to pinch. And you can also see that they're kind of far apart and that you can push them together. But when you've got this coming over, it's a little more difficult to get everything lined up. So this is the trickiest part of transformation to Battroid mode. You could see there's a pretty big disparity on how big that clip is versus how wide the metal bar is. And so you have to hold things just right so you can get that on there, and you're just going to kind of force it. And once you do, again, you've got those little pegs on either side that are supposed to go into the slot. Let's continue to apply pressure until it finds its home. And you can see I found it on one side. The plastic clip is behind the metal. On the other side, it looks a little funky. So it might not be perfect just yet, but a little wiggle jiggle and pressing in. And there we go. So now that metal bar is trapped and tight. We can come up to the top of the toy. You should have these shoulder joints nice and flush like that one is on this side. This was my loose joint over here, so it might not be as good. I will spin the shoulders around, and now what I want to do is slide the neck plate in. You can see there's a little divot on either side there. We're going to slide this in. There's pegs on either side. So we can bring this forward, and we're just going to push it in. Theoretically, you could do this with a sliding mechanism, but I find it's easier just to push it in. We could spin our head around at that point, and we're going to lift up on the head. Oop. Which, of course, I undid the neck plate, but put that neck plate back in, head up, and there you go. Obviously, we're getting pretty close at this point. Now, I spun my nacelles out a little bit earlier to give us some clearance, and now we're going to go ahead and slide them up. So what we want to do is fold the nacelle over in such a way that the vertical stabilizer will be in the middle. So bring that up and over, kind of fit it right in there. And then there are pegs on the backpack, and we want to flip these pegs out. They're a little flush, so they can be pretty tricky to spin out. And then we can slide up the nacelles and bring this backpack down. And as we do this, you should see those pegs line up with the nacelles. Now, the nacelles can slide up a little further than the pegs would indicate. But once you've got it in position, you're going to press, and hopefully it will slide in there for you and not simply flush back up with the backpack, which is a fairly common problem, but there you go. Now the nacelles locked into place. We can take our wings, we can fold them down, bring our backpack straight, and voila, Battroid mode. Odds are pretty good that you're going to have some fine tuning to do at this point, but the real takeaway here, the neck plate should be sturdy. These pegs, the most important part really, these pegs on the interior should be into their housing in the front on either side. That's going to keep things nice and tight. And these shoulders also up top, everything should be nice and flush here and held together. And the toy should handle pretty well at that point. The pegs on the nacelles obviously still in place. One last little bit of fine tuning. There is the ability to pull out this little piece at the foot, which makes it more resemble the line art. Check out my full review on anymoon.com. Subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.